his own microphone. A suit costs $400, and nobody knows what time it is, despite the clock that's literally built into the show. One man has the courage to stand up and say, it's in time, not on time.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone, to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter, and, of course, Starsky's cam is not interested in opening. I'll get your camera up in a second, but we do have Operator Starsky, Captain Operator Starsky, with us today. Operator Starsky, how are you?
Hello, hello. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. We've already got, let's see, you better produce Starsky or your toast. Let's see, last week was bait and switch because we said we were going to have you, of course, and you were, yeah, this gets hostile when you don't show up. I'm just, for our own safety, if you can, I know sometimes you have to brave rockets, bombs and stuff like that, but really for our own safety, I'm hoping you can, just not miss shows in the future, because, oh my God.
My life is full of pain these weeks because I have to visit dentist a lot, because years of living in Lubny as a kid, and then years of deployments and drinking water in Donbass, and water in Donbass tastes like borscht, but not in a good way. I'm serious. So yeah, so I have to visit dentist a lot these weeks, and sometimes I visited him today, and I'm still anesthetized. That's why I cannot talk well. But anyways, I'm just worried about your well-being. That's why I decided to definitely take part in this show tonight, because people could go postal.
No. I appreciate it. That's one reason why we're never doing a show with Fuchs, because if we do, he's going to be even more popular than you. And then if we can't produce, it's like, Nick, produce the dog, Nick, produce the dog. It's like, okay. So thank you all for, and Macmillan's dogs are now becoming more popular. I swear to God, I want to figure out why, we bring on really educated guests. We bring on guests who are like on the front lines. We bring on, now we want to see the dog. We're going to change In Time to like grooming time or something like that. We're just going to groom dogs as we talk about, so we'll be shearing, Macmillan's dog, talk about so tell me about what happened with Putin today.
Yeah, I agree on that. The other day I was trying to go to sleep, I couldn't sleep. So I was just surfing random videos on YouTube. And one of the random videos was like chimpanzee grooming a person. And it lasted for like half an hour or something like that, and it was so exciting I forgot about sleeping completely.
It's amazing what catches our attention. For I don't know why. I've been watching videos of apes engaged in social behavior. And I think the reason why is because I'm losing my faith in humanity, and I watch apes engaged in social behavior. I was like, oh, I recognize that. Oh yeah, that's high school kids. We're just not that different, unfortunately. Very territorial.
I can talk about it. I can talk about it, Nick. So the other day, I was like a couple of years ago, I was in Poland, in Warsaw, and of course I visited the zoo because I'm crazy about museums and zoos and stuff like that. So the most exciting area of this zoo, and in Warsaw, it's a really huge zoo with all kinds of marine animals and stuff like that. And the most exciting place for me specifically was that huge place where they keep apes. Mm-hmm. And two biggest impressions. First was this huge gorilla. So you can imagine big window made of thick glass, and this gorilla was sitting its back facing the glass, and from behind he looked it looked exactly like what's the name of what is the name of that Kadyrov. So if Kadyrov was a bit a bit younger, because I saw him like previously when he was younger, he was in a good shape actually, and he has like like this V-shaped back, and this one looked exactly like him. And I was jealous because gorillas have those muscles. You have to work like crazy in the gym to look like a normal human being, and those bastards are given that naturally. And another thing that was it completely conquered my heart and my mind was the place where they kept chimpanzees. So you can imagine like this huge cage, and there were like chimpanzees, mostly females, mostly females, and their kids were like playing and screaming and beating each other and doing everything like what the kids do. The women were like sitting together discussing something, and I was like, but where's the guy? Like, there's supposed to be the guy. So I found the guy. I looked up, and he was sitting alone in the highest spot in this cage, and he was sitting like this. And he looked like some family guy here in Ukraine, for example. He was like completely beaten up by this life. Like, he came home, there's all this mess. You're trying to find a quiet place to I don't know, to comfort yourself, right? To stay alone, because like you were working all day long hard, and all those guys at the work, and your boss hates you and stuff like that. So he found the highest spot, and he was like there, like sitting and thinking, and I felt for him, like literally. I was like, dude, I'm feeling you, bro.
I gotta tell you, and we're gonna get to Ukraine, but I'm sorry, I'm just enjoying this conversation too much. Besides the fact that this brings back, it's a good thing that Commander McMillan isn't here, because we had a very long discussion on how he had a friend who artificially inseminated hippos, accidentally used a little too much, may have inadvertently killed a hippo at a zoo and then run away. And this got misinterpreted somehow. We were talking about this, and it got misinterpreted as him doing this with hippos, and then it took a step further that it may not have been artificial in some way. It was an unfortunate discussion. But so we've had discussions about zoos and unfortunate mishaps with hippopotami and various other animals when Lance is around. But we'll skip that, because if he sees this, he's gonna find a way to get me back. He's been getting me for these things. That's why last time you were here, he had that somewhat libelous claim about Elon Musk doing cocaine. I'm not going to repeat the claim. You remember the claim. At any rate, I was speaking with somebody who works at a zoo, and I said, what's it like keeping track of the animals? And I said, actually, the animals are really easy. The enclosures are usually well done. The animals are a piece of cake. The problem is the human beings. And like the human beings are always messing with the animals. They're always doing, like she said, literally, we had like an 18-year-old kid broke into the elephant enclosure, ran up, smacked an elephant in the butt, and then turned around and ran. It's like, oh dear Lord, oh no! And in the U.S., a while back, there was a kid who was taunting a tiger and was throwing rocks at a tiger and doing all this other stuff. And then the tiger got really upset. And it turns out that when the tiger's upset, it can jump just a little higher than it can on the rest of the time. And it managed to get out, and it mauled the kid. And I truly, honestly, I don't want to. I mean, you have to obviously feel bad for the kid. He was a young kid who was doing something really stupid, as young kids are wont to do. But on the flip side, don't throw rocks at tigers. I shouldn't have to. This shouldn't be like a class in high school where, like, kids, today we're going to learn that when you're encountering a wild animal, even at the zoo, you don't fuck with it. But anyways, that's. And if Lance were here, I'd remind him you also don't fuck with hippos, but he's not here, so I can get away with these comments. I swear to God, he's going to watch this show, and he's going to nail me for all this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Before we begin, just a reminder to everybody of a couple of quick things. First of all super chats that we get are 100%. They go to the charity of Starsky's choice. And that happens even on the days Starsky doesn't come. If it's a Starsky show, if you super chat, the super chats are all going to the charity of his choice. The charity is listed below in case anyone wants to send donations there directly. It's the Vatra Volunteer Organization. We've talked about it before. We'll probably bring it up again so that all of you know where it's going. You can only super chat. We are simulcasting. We're going to 2 channels today. We're going to In Time and we're going to Overtime. Both are In Time channels, but we've kind of separated out our content. So if you're interested in just the news, what's going on, in the world news, that's In Time. If you're interested in casual discussions on various topics, sometimes illicit relations with hippos, sometimes somewhat less serious stuff. And we'll bring on psychologists, philosophers. We've talked about, stochastic terrorism, various, what is the nature of truth. If you're interested in those kinds of discussions, that's Overtime. Overtime, we have to get to 1,000 subs. We have to do that really as quickly as possible because until it does, it can't operate as a full independent channel. There are a lot of restrictions on it, including monetization. So, in the Overtime show, which is where we're asking people to watch, like, subscribe, trying to get to that 1,000. The faster we do that, we can stop this multi-streaming stuff as soon as we've done that too, which I know all of us want to get over. And none of us ever want to see the Restream bot ever again. Trust me, especially our mods. But if you want to donate, if you want to send us a super chat, go to the In Time channel where this is also streaming. You can see it there. That's actually where I am in the live chat, just so that I can catch all the super chats. And you can't super chat on Overtime again, not until we get 1,000 subs. If you like the content, aside from like, subscribe, which helps us out in the algorithm, also share it with friends, buddies. Say, hey, this is a show that had on Starsky to talk about Ukraine. They also talked about illicit relations with zoo animals, any kinds of really interesting things to talk about. Share, and that's a great way to help us out too. So having gotten all of that finally aside, Starsky, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. And why don't you tell us what's been going on in the last week or week and a half, since we did unfortunately miss you last week in Ukraine and with the war.
2 very important news that happened this week. First is Russians lost a little less than 7,000 men this week. A little less than 7,000 orcs in Ukraine this week were eliminated by the armed forces of Ukraine. And we can see that our armed forces keep this good dynamics. We're talking about eliminated Russian personnel because currently this is our main task. As this defensive war goes on, as it continues, our main task is to hold our positions and eliminate Russian personnel. That's what we do every day. And by the way, I think yesterday they lost something like 12 tanks in a single day. I gotta check it out. Yeah, I gotta check, but I think they were talking about 12 tanks in past 24 hours, which is quite a lot. And we know also that approximately 70 attacks were deflected just yesterday. 2 days ago, there were something like 90 attacks, and they were all deflected. Russians keep pushing towards Bakhmut. They keep beating their head against Bakhmut, but they cannot do anything. Commander Macmillan, welcome to the show. It's very nice to see you. And another update that was published just recently, approximately 1 hour ago, is that Putler is finally going to Hague. Eventually, not today, maybe, but the warrant was issued by the International Criminal Court, and I don't remember that they issued a warrant to arrest a national leader after Slobodan Milosevic, basically.
That's a good point.
The problem with the ICC is that it has no teeth. They can't arrest people. The parent country must do the arrest, and then the parent country needs to also voluntarily turn him over to the ICC. And in the event Putin does get removed from power, which is, let's face it, a prerequisite to him going to The Hague, I seriously doubt any of the oligarchs who end up taking control afterwards are going to want him rattling around as a potential counter-coup threat. He'll be disappeared very quickly.
I agree. I mean, Putin is a dead man already. Yeah. Like, there's no option for him. He's a dead man. But I think it's a good sign for, first of all, for everybody who still supports Russian terrorism involuntarily, all the bullshitted, brainwashed people, and also organizations like transnational companies, corporations that still have business inside Russia, because you can have business running in North Korea. You can, but until the leader, that the president of this country is proclaimed as a war criminal and the International Crime Court issues a warrant to arrest his ass, I think it's a good sign.
Oh, I agree it's a good sign, but I don't think it is going to end up with any trial.
I think that's probably what I'd like to do is I just want to have see if we can have Starsky finish his sort of rundown of what's been going on in the last week or so, and then unpack the end of it, because I think there's a lot to talk about. Although I completely concur, Commander. So thank you, and I had a few questions for you.
Words, just say shut the hell up, man.
Well, I'm trying to be kind of extra nice to you right now because I'm hoping you don't go back and watch the first 15 minutes of this show. It was a great show. We certainly weren't discussing hippos. So Starsky, please. So just a few hours ago. And this is on our Discord. We have breaking news on our Discord. We follow all of this on our Discord. We have channels for everything from gaming to Ukraine to U.S. international politics. So we just dropped a link to the Discord. I will be dropping another one in a minute. So so just a couple hours ago, International Criminal Court at The Hague issued an arrest warrant for him and the head of, I think it was Children's Affairs in Russia. So there's a lot to unpack there. So what else has been going on? They've lost a lot of tanks, lost a lot of men, smashing their heads against Bakhmut. What else do we have?
I just noticed something. Your sounds good. I mean, your microphone works.
I was shocked too. It's nice to. This is my primary microphone, and for reasons we cannot fathom, it's been giving a hard time, and I've had to switch to my backup, which is this one. It's not bad, but it's a little tiny mic. It's like for emergencies only. It's if everything else fails on the show, it's like I'm still talking. I can go into this one. But yes, my mic finally sounds about where it's supposed to. So that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, so what else? I noticed, and that's personally my observation, I noticed that Russia is trying to push its hybrid warfare, its informational operations, starting with failed attempts of Wagnerites to boost and pump up their informational campaign, which looks so cringy. I don't even want to comment that filthy crap, because like the dude is insane. That's all I can say. The dude is insane, and currently they're photoshopping multiple fakes every single day. They all get debunked that very day, but anyways, another thing is I noticed increased activity of Russian psyops in the American media. Not only American media, we also talk about Moldova, by the way. So what it tells us, first of all, they realized that they have to keep doing what they can do best, which is brainwashing people and spreading lots of fakes and basically propaganda. I already said it multiple times, but propaganda is their main weapon, their strongest weapon. But at the same time, we receive more and more, let's say, they're not like proofs, but rather rumors from sources in Russia. But those rumors are numerous that Putin is trying to use his informational machine, his propaganda. At the same time, there's multiple conflicts within the Russian elites, and those media that he's trying to use, they are controlled by different people within the Russian elites that are fighting each other at this stage. They have no unity at this moment, and that's why most of his informational campaign fail. And it's a good news for us, because they cannot keep the war running and keep their propaganda running at the same time. But if they have a time to regroup, basically, and concentrate their resources either for war or for informational war, then it will work and it will bring results.
All right. Well, thank you for getting us up to date. I know I've got a few questions, but I'm going to pass it off to Commander McMillan, and we'll see if he's got any questions or anything that he wants to discuss. A reminder, Super Chats have to be done in time. If you want to, there should be a link to that in the description, and all Super Chats are going to the Vatra Volunteer Organization. So, having said all of that, Commander, was there anything that you wanted to add or ask about, or let's just pass it off to you?
Sure. Couple items that I think are worth mentioning. I think we're seeing a continuing erosion of Russian offensive capability. The they have maps that show all the reported firefight, artillery incidents, etc., up and down the front. And the number of those during the past week has been dropping steadily. I think a lot of it is because they're, among other things, running out of ammunition. Estimates are that they've expended somewhere between 50 to 60% of all their stockpiled artillery ammo. So that's going to really put a big speed brake on their being able to do major offenses. We're also seeing increasing criticism coming up inside Russia about what's going on, to the extent that they've had to pass legislation saying that, you know, anybody who tries to say anything critical of the military or the leadership is going to get arrested and thrown in prison. And it's kind of ridiculous as to how bad it is. We've seen before that it's gotten so ridiculous that some of the news commentators poke jokes at it because the conflicting level of the legislation is such that, well, I can't say this because I'll get thrown in jail for this, but then I can't say that because I'll get thrown in jail for doing this side of the thing. So basically, you're not allowed to talk about the war. It's become Fight Club for Russia. But another sign of. Go ahead.
I remember there was and he said, you can't say this either, but this is what he decided to do. I think it was a television pundit who said, well, I'd like to say what's going on wrong in Ukraine, but I can't because that would make it look like I'm criticizing, the leaders. So I'd like to talk about what's going right in Ukraine, but I can't because that would be admitting that there's a war and that, that would be, I forget what was that would be admitting something. Yeah. Either way, he was going to go to jail. So it's like, if I say things are bad, I go to jail. If I say things are good, I go to jail. So I'm just going to tell you the truth, which is I can't talk about it. It's like, I'm sure he went to jail.
The first rule of Russian media is not to talk about the war. Period.
That's the reason why all the Russian bloggers are so ridiculous. I mean, watching Russian blogs on YouTube is a freaking torture. We're like, bro, say something, please. Speak out words.
It's like a bad comedy routine in some cases. It's just trying to talk around something so severely that what you're saying doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
If I talk about the war, I'm going to go to jail. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the war in mime. Okay, so you have
interpretive Dan.
Yes.
Nick, I saw that. I swear, I saw that. There was this Russian blogger, a girl. Her name is Nastya something, and she was like, there is this officially, it's called special military operation. Non-officially, you know how it's called, but because we cannot call it the way we should call it, we will just make a sign. And I'm like, oh my, like, are you for real?
I'm so glad I live in a free country. And sometimes that's like, America's the land of the free. Okay, maybe not. But compared to Russia, every Yugoslavia is the land of the free. Anyways, all right. So you were saying, Macmillan.
I was going to, yeah. So the other signs we're seeing of continuing and growing unrest is the increasing number of industrial accidents that seem to be mysteriously occurring all across Russia. So I think last week we had the airplane outside Vladivostok that was blown up by something that, wasn't guerrillas or partisans. No, it was, a smoking accident. We've had other ones in Petrograd, in Mariupol. Right now, there's a pair of fires in a bunch of ammunition being detonated in FSB headquarters buildings in Rostov.
When did this happen?
And I think it was yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Huh?
How did I got to be on our Discord. I must have missed it. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, and and Rostov is right there near the front, so either it's Ukrainian partisans or it's anti-Putler guerrillas, one of the two.
Well, this one was interesting, by the way, Commander, because of course Russians were blaming electricity issues that caused fire.
Yeah.
But
probably the heaviest protected building in all of Rostov.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of CCTV videos that show this tremendous explosion and then this crazy fire that literally destroyed everything inside of building. I'm not sure that guerrillas would be even able to bring something like that. I mean, yeah, we can expect like a grenade, RPG, that 𝐒𝐚𝐬 fire thrower, I don't know, but the fire was massive.
Yeah. And it's a case of you had to get inside the building to cause that. And, this is like sneaking into the FBI or CIA headquarters building. It's probably so heavily protected. It's a regional center, so it's probably going to be the ones that are orchestrating things like the continuing massive deportations of people from the occupied territories, that kind of stuff. So it's getting really crazy inside Russia right now. I don't think it's big enough that it's going to have an impact on Russia per se, but it's the same kind of stuff you saw leading up to the 1905 and then the 1917 revolutions in Russia, where you get these little acts of defiance and violence against the state that are indicative of a growing momentum.
Let me ask you this, Commander. You are a graduate of the Naval War College. You are a student of history. We've discussed a great many things on which you're actually very qualified to talk about. So let me ask you this question. We know, if I recall correctly, the oil that they were, the natural gas that they were selling to Germany and then other oil exports that have been cut represented 2/3 of the budget for the military alone in Russia. That budget is gone. We know their economy has taken a severe hit from the sanctions. They've done a lot to insulate themselves from sanctions, aware that this was going to happen. But the sanctions, we believe at this point, have been far in excess of what they were anticipating, including but not limited to shutting off the Nord Stream pipeline. They are selling some to China and to India, but at 50% of the normal rate. They are making some money, but at this point we believe that they're down at least 2/3 of what they were anticipating having, down by 2/3. So they have only about 1/3 left. Right. Given what's happening with the economy, given what's happening with the war, in which Putin really has, at this point, nothing really to show for it, and it looks like the very little that's sort of artificial that he's got, areas in the Donbass and so on and so forth, he is apt to lose at this point, and certainly can't keep going, given the losses of young men who were also qualified to do other things, and the significant damage being done to Russia. What is the possibility of having either A, just a replacement of Putin with somebody either better or worse, or B, an entire collapse of the Russian government? Is that on the table at this point, do you think, and what's the likelihood?
I think it's probably a 2/3, 1/3 proposition. I think it's a 2/3 chance you're going to get something where one oligarch or another, or some junta of oligarchs, decide that they're going to replace him. They make him go away, and then whatever they do from there is depending on which individuals we're talking about. The 1/3, I think, is a possibility of Russia dissolving. Now, I should explain that. People will misunderstand. It's kind of like the Soviet Union dissolving. Russia's still there. Russia was the Soviet Union. It just parts of it fell away. And I think that could happen here as well. I think that you get some big upheaval, a change of government, not in terms of just changing the leadership, but a popular uprising, perhaps and most likely sponsored by some different-minded oligarch who wants to completely change the system. And in order to make that occur, you have certain areas get stripped off and they can become transition from the semi-autonomous regions that they are now into actual independent regions. I don't think that's likely, and I think there would be enormous resistance to that happening. It would not surprise me if something of that nature would precipitate a second Russian Civil War, because it's so anathema to the standard way of Russian thinking. But those are the possibilities as I see it. What do you think, Starsky?
Recently, they had polls in different regions in Russia. I'm not sure. I'm sure that those were like non-official polls, because having such polls is a crime in Russia. And we're talking about polls about separation from the Russian Empire, right? So different people in different okrugs, oblasts were asked whether they want to separate, and everybody voted yes, including such regions as St. Petersburg. Actually, more or less conscious people live there comparing to Moscow, but even such regions voted for separation from the Russian Federation. And it's a good sign, basically. I think that the separatism in Russia can be ignited fairly easily. The other hand, biggest concern, and for some reason, when we talk about such things, I always recall, I believe it was President Bush who came to Ukraine in the 90s, I think prior to the collapse of the USSR, and he was convincing people not to vote against separation from Russia because it will be a disaster. But anyways, one of the biggest concerns that people on the West have regarding this will be the problem of nuclear weapons that are stored all across the Russian Federation. At the same time, I think when Russian state become independent from one each other, they will have the same problem Ukraine had back in the 90s, when all the strategic nuclear weapons required codes that they will not have. Therefore, I think it's not a problem from the security standpoint whatsoever.
Yeah. Although I do think one of the takeaways of what is happening right now is don't in any circumstances give up your nuclear weapons if you have them, because then the Russians will see you as weak.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they only respect strength. It's kind of sad. I wanted to talk about a couple of other things. There's a whole wave of additional aid that seems to be coming your way. Just selectively picking at a few items here. Apparently, Latvia is giving more stuff. Now, admittedly, Latvia is a small country, doesn't have a lot to give. But the figure that I heard that was stunning is apparently 1% of Latvia's entire GDP has been delivered to Ukraine in aid. That's stunning. We know that the Poles and Slovaks are talking about basically getting rid of all their old MiG-29s and sending them to you guys, and I think that's helpful. Germany's talking about more Gepards. Germany's talking about more ammunition. Sweden's talking about more self-propelled guns. I want to mention this one just because a lot of people only look and focus at the big high-end equipment, tanks, artillery, planes. Belgium is giving 240 military trucks. Now, if you were perhaps thinking of conducting an offensive come spring or early summer, those trucks become incredibly important in sustaining the logistics for any such offensive. So you cannot undersell those kinds of contributions as well. And I think a lot of people tend to just kind of, oh, poo-poo, yeah, trucks, who cares? No, they're exceptionally important. We saw the incident this past week with the Russians accidentally ramming a MQ-9 drone.
May I interrupt real quick?
Now,
were they also dropping fuel on
sure.
it? I mean, that's what it looks like, is that they dropped the...
To be fair, a lot of people speculate what really was going on is the pilots were trying to dump fuel onto or in the vicinity of the drone and then kick up and, using their afterburners, ignite that fuel to cause an explosion which would take out the drone.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're not a particularly good pilot and you're flying that close to a drone, executing a fancy, last-minute pull-up maneuver, you might misjudge the distances a tiny bit, and oopsie. So, yeah, I don't think he was deliberately ramming the drone. Nobody's that stupid. But
well, you just made a claim about the Russian military not being that stupid. Do you want to reconsider that claim, or are you going to stick with that?
I will say that the individual soldier, pilot, sailor, etc., is not particularly stupid.
Okay.
I think their command structure is, again, I won't even call them stupid. I think they are both ill-informed and, going back to our conversation of last night, they are so influenced by their own preconceptions of what reality is supposed to be that they don't willingly look at the actual picture and make informed decisions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the highest level of leadership. Yeah, those guys, they're plain out stupid. None of what's gone on is entirely unpredictable. They should have seen it coming. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I mean, there's a joke about this Soviet army called Russian army. It's when you graduate from your military academy, for example, as a lieutenant, nobody yet knows that you are stupid. By the moment they find out about it, you are already a captain, and by the moment when they realize what to do with you, you are already a major, and by the time they start doing something about it, you're already a colonel. So this is how it works. I stick with the idea that they are stupid.
Someday I'll have to tell you the joke about the 5 most dangerous things in the Navy. Anyway,
I want to get to a super chat. We got to a super chat, and then I have a question about that particular incident. So the super chat is from Level 70, who was super chatted before. So thank you very much, Level 70, for your support. It's $13.99 Canadian. Hi, Starsky. I heard Ukraine conducted a rescue operation in Syria to free some Ukrainian civilians. Do you have any insight as to what happened?
No, unfortunately not. I had no chance to follow today's news, unfortunately, because I was tortured at the dentist's.
And by the way, future super chats will be going also to Starsky's dentist, not because we are interested in seeing him in any significant amount of pain. It's explicitly because we're very concerned about dental hygiene. So thank you very much for that. Before we continue, that's going to be going, all super chats are going to the Vatra Volunteer Organization. That was the organization that Starsky has chosen. Could you tell us a little bit about that before we get back to the drone operator?
Yes, this is a charity organization that is ran by some brave women, and they gather the humanitarian aid as well as military aid for our soldiers, like uniforms, like combat gear, transportation cars. And they deliver it directly to the front lines, areas like Bakhmut. And Anastasia Rokitna, she is a chief of this organization. This week she made me very, very nervous because she got shelled in Donbass, and luckily she's fine, but she had this shell shock, very bad one. But luckily she's alive. But they're doing amazing job. And recently, our commander talked to Anastasia and the chief of this organization, and the Vatra organization agreed to officially support my brigade. That's why if you support Vatra, you are supporting my brigade directly.
So, and that's marvelous to hear. And there are a lot of charities we're a fan of. Obviously, the great charities, International Committee for the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders. But this is a way that you can help specifically, both in Ukraine and specifically to Starsky's brigade. So, super chats have to be done on In Time. Again, we've discussed this. If you can like, subscribe, and share on Overtime, that'll help us get to 1,000 subs. But until then, just go to In Time and you can super chat. Commander, would attacking that drone and trying to down it, would that be considered an act of war?
Drones fall into an interesting gray zone because you're not shooting at a person, you're shooting at a machine. But the idea here was that this was in international waters, so they had no reason to be acting the way they did, except this is one of those situations where you have a state that has claims which are not recognized by the international community. So the Russians kind of say, ooh, the Black Sea, it's our sea. Nobody else gets to sail a boat in it without our permission, kind of thing. So their argument was kind of, I suspect, that the drone was operating in Russian airspace, therefore they were trying to protect their interests. Now, what I find interesting is I'm looking at the pictures of the incident that are being taken by the drone itself as the flankers or the aircraft are making the passes. And I'm looking down, not up at the aircraft, I'm looking down at the water. And there's a ship down there. So I wonder if this was a ship, a naval ship, that was doing something sensitive that they were trying to protect, their information about what it was doing. Perhaps worried that they were passing targeting information from that drone to the Ukrainian forces who could fire coastal defense missiles or something at it. I don't know. But the idea that they did attack it the way they did, I don't see that would be illegal, but it's certainly a grounds to file a massive protest. And if you wanted to use it as something to escalate the situation, you could.
We've got a couple others. Please. Yes.
My thought was that I think so. that they thought that it was a Ukrainian drone. Could be.
I don't think we've given you guys Reapers yet.
That was a high-end.
No,
yeah.
but they don't know it. Plus, we have a bunch of drones that Russians don't have any clue about. So they could think that it was a Ukrainian drone. So they wanted to down it.
Which is another great lead-in. Apparently, there is talk that this incident is prompting another U.S. aid package. And items that I have heard being discussed as being included in said package are MQ-9 Reaper drones and DPICM cluster munitions for artillery shells. And if you want to stop Russian, human wave infantry assaults, nothing says hello quite as effectively as a DIPM. So that would be nice. I've also heard that ATACMs are under consideration. So the ATACMs, for those who don't know, it's the HIMARS missile, part of that family. It's the longest ranged one of the bunch. And so we made a big deal recently when we gave Ukraine, and I can't remember the initials for it, but it's a long range missile with a glide bomb that's on it. That effectively doubled the reach of HIMARS that they were using. Well, ATACMs will effectively double the reach on that.
Jesus. So into Russian territory without much difficulty, and certainly if they get into it. Okay. Yeah,
it's something like, if I remember correctly, it's approaching 200-mile range.
Jesus. Now, we do have a couple other super chats, and we're going to get to them. Thank you guys so much. Again, that'll be going to the Vatro Volunteer Organization, but I want to make sure there's a couple things I think we all want to hit, so I want to be moving forward, and then we'll get to those super chats. Thank you very much. We're not going to ignore them. Commander, did you have what was next on your itinerary? Oh, he's going to be on the phone there for a second. Let me there we go. I'm going to mute him for a sec. Oh, is he yeah, I'll leave him I think he's
the other thing that I thought was interesting is the IMF is apparently talking about giving Ukraine a $15.5 billion loan. Ooh. And fighting a war costs a lot, so you need money, and this is one of the biggest loans the IMF has ever given out. Now, the thing that I find interesting is, to some extent, IMF loans are a bit of a poison pill, because with that loan is debt, and you have to repay said debt to the IMF. And to execute those repayments, they can demand all sorts of really harsh austerity measures. And this becomes a problem for Ukraine, because once this war finally ends, Ukraine needs to rebuild. And if the IMF is saying, no, the loan needs to be serviced before you can rebuild your country, it leaves Ukraine in this really unfortunate situation where they can't rebuild because they have to meet the needs of this debt, and it leaves them as kind of a crippled state, if you will. So it's a nice and a horrible thing at the same time. The flip side of all this, aid isn't just coming to Ukraine. Apparently the Chinese are now sending token amounts of aid to the Russians. Now, when I say token, I mean like 1,000 small arms. Really small amounts of equipment. In a large war like this, essentially meaningless in terms of volume, but it's testing the waters. If you can give the Russians 1,000 AKs and nobody protests, then next month you give them 50,000 AKs and some artillery. And you see what I'm saying. You use this as progression, because if you don't shut the door immediately, it's that crack that you can use for a legal precedent, so to speak, to worm your way inside. And I think that's kind of what's going on right now. They're testing the waters. Will people protest about this and make it stink? How it will impact us. So that's something that's significant that we need to consider.
So, Starsky, what were your views on the aid package, or the IMF aid package, or anything else? It looked like you were going to say something, so I want to make sure that we.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because I worked in the World Bank. But at the same time, we had a similar situation after the Revolution of Dignity, because our former dictator Yanukovych fled to Russia, and he took basically the annual budget of Ukraine with him, and we remained with like zero budget, and I think approximately $11 billion debt that we had to pay out. And I think I don't remember the details. I'm very sorry, but I think that the IMF took this into account, and they considered our problems, and eventually I think we were able to pay out everything in a couple of years. So I gotta check this information, but I remember that I was searching for this information specifically back in the days, in like 2018, 2017. So I knew that we were repaying the debt, and I think that if IMF wants to be remembered in the history as the biggest assholes in the world, they can do that, of course, but I doubt that.
When did a banker ever care how he looks at, historical perspective?
They did, because I worked in the external affairs team, and when they were screwing up, I had to do something to fix that. So that's why they have PR organizations. So I think it's possible, but it's not mandatory. Let's call it this way.
Okay. So you want to deal with your
all right,
there?
yeah. Let's hit the super chats. I had one comment earlier, and we're going to get to the a bit more to the Hague and the warrant. But I think it was driving in Luton said something along the lines of arrest warrant issued for head of Russian state described as short, looking like Dobby the house elf. So just keep an eye out for Dobby, and there you go. So yeah, we have a couple of super chats here. 1999 pounds. Awesome to see you, Starsky and Nick and Lance. Could you please explain how the jets? Let's see that. How the jets are used in supporting tanks and relative effectiveness of tanks with and without air support. So we got like 4 or 5 of these, just FYI. So we'll go through them quick, and then we'll get back to. But so that was the first question for both of you.
Okay.
Depends on the situation, because there's tactical aviation, there's attack aviation. Attack aviation used to strike ground targets. There's tactical aviation that is used to interceptors that used to suppress the air support of the enemy troops. So it depends on the situation completely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to have air support. An example would be the first Gulf War. Basically, the entirety of Saddam's army is destroyed by air power. But that's only possible because of two things. One, we establish absolute air supremacy. So the Iraqi Air Force is almost not flying at all. And two, the Iraqis have rudimentary, at best, air defenses. So our aircraft can operate with a fair degree of impunity over the front. That's not the case here in Ukraine. What you have here in Ukraine is the Russians have a fairly powerful air force, but it's not powerful enough to contest the airspace over Ukraine. So they're at air parity, and it's very dangerous to fly over the front because A, the other side's aircraft are going to shoot you down, and B, there's a hell of a lot more air defense on both sides of the front. So getting in there to hit things is tough. What you need is a standoff weapon that'll allow you to engage from the air out, beyond the range of the air defenses.
Right. Yes, I agree on that. Previously we were very successful in the early months of this invasion using our Bayraktar strike drones. And the reason for that was Russians didn't have efficient anti-air defense back then. They would attack in columns trying to roll through Ukraine, and it was hilarious. That's why we have hundreds and hundreds of video footage showing effective operations done by those Bayraktar drones. But later in the days, we saw less and less of those footages because Russians they realized that they have to deploy their anti-air defense properly, and that's why it was dangerous to use our drones, because we could lose all of them. So at this point, Ukraine, basically our major cities, as well as the specific spans of our front lines, they have very thick and very effective anti-air defense. And as for Russians, they have those as well. They have plenty of S-300 systems, S-400 systems that can be used both to destroy airplanes as well as strike the surface targets. So it will be difficult. But I'm not a pilot, so I don't know a lot of specifics of the air-to-air and air-to-ground combat.
And we've gotten word now that The Hague has released so that there is an arrest warrant for Putin. They have released a photograph of what they would like, just so that people can identify Putin if they have to. Shh, don't say anything, Commander. So they've sent a photo of, this is from The Hague. You see Putin there on the left. And so that he's easier to spot, they've showed somebody on the right, like a humanized version of him. But that is from The Hague. Vladimir Putin. He is now an arrest warrant has been issued, and so if you see him, you can we'll credit Starsky with breaking that one. Thank you.
The one on the right was his double, obviously.
Yes.
You know.
So the one they use for security.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we gotta be cautious.
Yeah. Get the right one. It's the one on the left. You can tell by the ears, and all right. So
it's disturbingly weird.
I do. We have to get Dobby the house elf. We'll get that one for next time. For next time we will get Dobby the house elf. In fact, I've got an idea on what we can do with that, so we'll do that. We've had a couple questions. Yeah, we apologize for the confusion. Again, we're simulcasting 2 channels. It does cause confusion. Believe me, we are desperate to end this process. We're trying to get overtime to 1,000 subs. And once we do, that's going to make everybody's life a lot easier. Until then, we appreciate you bearing with us. If you do want to super chat, you have to go to the in-time version of the show. It's simulcasting on both. In-time is monetized. Overtime is not. That's the reason for the restriction. There's nothing we can do about it. But we've gotten Canadian $22. from Lisa Sidewand, and it's a bunch of hearts with the Ukrainian hearts in there. So thank you very much. Cheryl Watley has several emojis: a strong arm, flame, swords, trident, and the Ukrainian flag. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it, and we'll be making sure that that's going to go again to the Vatra Volunteer Organization. And lastly, Lisa, 50 American U.S. Rapid Response Brigade, and then the Ukrainian flag. I think that's referring to the new brigade setups that has been established or is being established right now in Ukraine. Is that correct?
Rapid Response Brigade is my brigade. This is how we're called. We have, like in the movies, when you meet a devil, he says, I have a lot of names. And basically, my brigade has a lot of several names. Officially, we have a very, very long title, which sounds like 4th Operative Brigade, named after the hero of Ukraine, Sergeant 𝐒𝐨𝐿𝐴 of the National Guard of Ukraine.
Jesus.
And in order to have like a shorter name, we call ourselves Rapid Response Brigade of the National Guard, the Frontier.
Okay. All right. Well, so marvelous. So Lisa, thank you. That not only did you donate $50, which we sincerely appreciate. Thank you. But I learned something. So great. It's also a rare known fact in the United States, the state with the longest. Do you happen to know, Commander, the state of all 50 states with the longest name?
I don't know. I'd be guessing. I'd say like New Hampshire or something. But
reasonably Rhode Island has the longest. We call it Rhode Island, but it's officially like the Commonwealth of the people of the state of Rhode Island, and it's one of those. It's the same thing. All right. So, Commander, back to you. The only two things I want to make sure we hit is discuss a little bit more about the info out of The Hague, and also an update really on Bakhmut and what we're seeing there, and or maybe what to expect on the future. I don't know what else you wanted to make sure that you asked Starsky about while we've got him.
Sure. Let me touch on two other items that I think are pertinent here, and it goes to kind of what Starsky was talking about for a while, which was the Russian propaganda offensive that's going on. It's having different effects. So in some places, it's actually hurting them. So, for example, the biggest pro-Russian party in Netherlands used to have 12 seats in their parliament, now is down to 2. And it's because people were so pissed off about, their position with regards to, Vladimir Putin is a global hero and we should all praise him. Yeah, let's flush that toilet. But then you turn around and you look at this country where the orange shit gibbons stood up recently and made pronouncements like, Russia is not a threat. We need to reevaluate our position about staying in NATO. And the greatest threat to the United States is not Russia, it is the American representatives. We need to purge the government of deep state agents. I mean, just so we understand where the man's coming from. But at the same time, there's information coming out that apparently the Russians have been providing him significant money to shore up his little Truth Social network, because that's important. So a bank that's partially owned by Putin's daughter gave him $8 million to save his little organization. So the propaganda efforts are working on some fronts and not working on other fronts.
I genuinely believe an arrest warrant needs to be issued for Trump as well, but that's not just hyperbole. I think that's well past. But there are others. It's not going to happen for reasons most people, we can. But yeah. All right.
Yeah. In terms of Bakhmut, the city is still technically in Ukrainian hands. The Russians have all but encircled it. I think there's, a path that's, a couple 100 meters wide, a road leading out of town. So it's easily interdicted by Russian fires if they're trying to bring people in or take people out of the city. But they're still holding it. The Russian offensive efforts in that area, however, have died down. And I'm going to get the name of the city wrong. I'm sorry, but it's like Vuhledar or something, which is to the south of it.
Vuhledar, yes.
That's where the bulk of the Russian attacking efforts are going on right now. And that kind of makes, in my mind, no sense when you've almost won one battle and then suddenly to say, oh, okay, we're done. We're going to stop here and not win this battle. We're going to try something completely new over here in another insignificant, pointless place. And if anything, Vuhledar is an even worse place to be conducting offensive because it's surrounded by wide open fields. So anytime they start trying to advance on the city, they're losing horrendous amounts of equipment and personnel. I think, what was it, a couple days ago, it was like 700 casualties in a single day. 5 tanks and 20-something armored personnel carriers destroyed in a single day because they're trying to take Vuhledar, and this stuff is just getting blasted as soon as it comes out of the wood line. And it's got to cross like a full kilometer of open countryside to get there. It's insane. The speculation of why that's happening that way is because the victory, if there is to be one, at Bakhmut is largely something that you can credit to Wagner Group and Prigozhin. And so the army supposedly has completely withdrawn any support for the forces there so that he doesn't get the headlines. And they're putting all that material and supplies into this other offensive where hopefully the army can win a glorious victory at Vuhledar and make Prigozhin look like an idiot. So they're their own worst enemies is the only way I can explain it. It just doesn't make any sense. What would you?
Yeah, so the information that I have is that currently Wagnerites are locked in Bakhmut. So they're locked there without much support from the armed forces of Russian terrorist federation, and without like shells and support from their armored vehicles and things like that. And basically they did it because Putin wants to get rid of Prigozhin completely. And it's their one-way ticket. So as for Vuhledar, there is a different information that I have because according to the ISW, for example, they say that in that area Russians are actually preparing for defense. I remember that a couple of times we saw Russians using their inflatable army in the area of Vuhledar, and this can be a sign that they wanted to distract our attention from Bakhmut, and probably that's exactly what we see there. They're just turning to ashes a lot of their troops there in that area, trying to.
So you think it's a feint?
I think so.
Okay.
Currently, Bakhmut is being attacked from 3 sides, and according to the very same ISW, the Russian attacking capabilities are reaching their culmination in Bakhmut. Yeah. So soon they will this activity will go down, it will decrease, and we will see some counteroffensive from Ukrainian armed forces in that area. And actually, there were some rumors about good news in Bakhmut, good news for us, but let's give it a couple of days. And Vuhledar, I think it's a feint, because again, they understand that they cannot do much there. Pavlivka, yes, they occupy Pavlivka. At the same time, they lost their famous 155th Brigade there, that Marine Brigade that was responsible, by the way, for atrocities in Bucha and Hostomel. And at the same time, one thing is very typical for Russians is this tendency of repetitive actions, like in Chernobyevka, for example. And it can only be explained by Russian doctrine, basically their doctrine. When they don't change their plan, they change people instead of dying people. That's all. That's why they're throwing more and more men in that area. So that can be one of the explanations, but my explanation is obviously it's a feint to distract forces from Bakhmut.
Okay. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons Vuhledar doesn't seem to me as a logical place to be staging an offensive, is it goes nowhere. I mean, there are literally no roads leading out of the town. So you take it and you've got a tiny farming community, basically. Bakhmut at least has a couple of main arterials that lead out of it.
Also remember that hype they were pumping up prior to this attack on Vuhledar. Basically, they were talking a lot about it, and when they talk about it, it means that there is a reason behind it.
Yeah. Your comment regarding they don't stop, they just change out the people, new live ones for the ones who got killed the first time. If you go back into like World War II, that was true then as well, but it was different from the standpoint of when an offensive would tend to stall, they would replace the commander. They wouldn't, give him more assets to achieve a breakthrough or anything. They would just say, obviously, you're not truly loyal to Comrade 𝐒𝐫, Stalin, so we're going to get rid of you and we're going to send somebody new in, and he will make the attack and he'll succeed because he knows, having given him the evidence, that failure to achieve the objective results in him getting executed. So I think there's probably some of that going on with the Russian high command now too, is that we keep seeing people getting changed out when their forces are failing to achieve the objectives that they've been ordered to achieve.
Yeah, I remember the story told by one of my buddies. He was in a Marine battalion. And he said they were, I probably told this story already, they were holding the defense behind a railway. So there was this railway, and it was like on the elevation. So the tanks could not pass across this railway because they would get stuck on the other side. And there was a passage in one spot, and Russians would send the same amount of men using the same path every single day. And our Marines would use their grenade launchers and mortars and yada yada, and they would be eliminated every single time. So every single time that group is spotted, They just our guys just opened fire and they're dead. They would bring other men and other men, those waves of men, every single time. But again, using same exactly number of people and same path, same type of attack, basically. And in the end, he told me that they lost. Our guys had to retreat because they ran out of shells. And Russians took that passage, but he said the location looked like, you know, that field from Warhammer, like field of bodies. But they managed to take this area because it was early months, early spring of last year, and we didn't have enough of shells and things like that.
It's military history is replete with stories like that. It's, you know, a famous one from our Civil War is Battle of Antietam, and Burnside continually sending individual battalions across this one bridge right into the heart of the Confederate defenses. The stream that the bridge went over was only like 2.5, 3 feet deep. He could have forded his entire force over in a broad front attack that would have succeeded, but he was obsessed with, I'm going to get across this bridge, and he just became fixated, destroyed his entire division. So we see this kind of nonsense all the time, and I think the Russians tend to be particularly prone to it.
Yeah.
All right, so the last thing that I'd like to discuss, and this came out, and this was on our Discord again. So join us on our Discord, and you can be on the cutting edge of this stuff, because we often release things before it's available, even in the mainstream media. But just a few hours ago, the International Court at The Hague issued arrest warrants for 2 people, for Vladimir Putin and also for the head of the Russian Department of Children's Services. So arrest warrants have been issued for both of them. The Hague is an interesting organization. It's the International Criminal Court, of which the U.S. is not a member. The reason the U.S. decided not to join ostensibly was Americans believe very strongly in their Constitution, and The Hague would actually supersede the Constitution in 1 or 2 areas. It was decided that nothing can supersede the U.S. Constitution, and under no circumstance would we allow Americans to be subject to an international criminal court. Having said that, we've already that's a phallus argument for any number of reasons, but that was the argument. Following that, if the U.S. isn't going to join, a number of other countries have chosen not to join as well, including Russia. The International Criminal Court does not have jurisdiction in areas where the country has not joined. Presumably, Putin can be arrested if he leaves the country. Any number of other things can happen, but the International Criminal Court does not have jurisdiction in the U.S., does not have jurisdiction in Russia. So they have issued this, and I wanted to discuss this briefly before we go. I'd like to start with Commander McMillan. What are your thoughts on the issuing of these warrants? Then Starsky. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with Starsky because I want to real quick. Why wasn't there arrest warrants for, like, say, it was specifically for the deportation of human beings? Why not for war crimes? It's quite clear that there have been serious war crimes in Ukraine.
General prosecutor of this International Crime Court, he already mentioned that they reviewed 2 events, 2 cases, basically. One case dedicated to the deportation of kids, and another case dedicated to strikes conducted against civilian objects and civilian infrastructure. So the chief prosecutor said that their top priority is to review the case on deportation of kids. So that's their priority number 1. And I think that eventually those accusations will be added with the time. but the top priority was specifically the deportation of kids because it's important as well.
Yeah, I think they're trying to draw a line in the sand and basically say you need to stop this right the hell now.
Yeah, but generally speaking, of course, we were talking about it, but of course there's a very low chance that Putin will spend his days behind the bars in Hague, but at the same time, there is a big possibility that he will not see the peaceful death. Okay, he will not die peacefully, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with either option. Absolutely, it's just the very case that the International Criminal Court issued those warrants. It's a sign as important as, for example, remember when the European countries voted to recognize Russia as a terrorist state, as a terrorist regime, and it's as important as that.
I have to believe. Well, let me ask. Again, starting with Operator Starsky, why on earth was the head of Department of Child Services in Russia included in this?
It's because they are. This is the service responsible for this thing, for managing stolen kids, right? Basically, what they do with Ukrainian kids is that they bring them to different, like, camps, like Boy Scout camps, but in Russia. Okay, nothing good about those camps, and they bring those kids to different families. They let different Russian families adopt Ukrainian kids, even though those kids have parents in Ukraine. A lot of them have parents in Ukraine, or had parents in Ukraine, and this organization, this kids services, is responsible to manage the kidnapped children that were stolen in Ukraine and deported to Russia.
I would contend that he's actually the primary focus of this indictment.
Oh, really?
Putin's on. Yeah, Putin's on there because, Putin. But this guy, it kind of puts him on notice that when the war ends, you're in serious straits. And you need to start making an effort right now so you can assist in undoing the evil you have done. If you demonstrate that, I was just following words, but I did make complete records so we know exactly where every one of these deported kids is, so we can return them to their parents, return them to Ukraine, we know who they are, all that, then his sentence probably gets mitigated a significant amount. In some part, this is reminiscent of the situation that happened in this country when we had all those kids that were being separated by INS from their parents and being kept in separate, detention centers. And then they were allowing people to come in and adopt these kids, good upstanding Republican Christian families were allowed to come in and selectively adopt kids and take them away, even though these kids had parents. Because, we don't have any records of who the kids go to. We have no way of returning them. It's not our fault.
Which, by the way, unfortunately was true. We separated the kids without keeping track of who their parents were. And some of them were so young that, you'd say, what's the name of your mom? My mom's name is Mom. And it was virtually impossible, and nobody kept, yeah.
Yeah, and so this kind of, I think, is at least in part what's going on right now, is they're putting it on record that you need to realize you're going to get prosecuted and punished for this, and you need to think about what that means to your future and how you can at least insulate yourself from the full weight of what's likely to descend upon you.
So Russia has been taking Ukrainian citizens and deporting them essentially to the most outer remote areas of Russia. And then in particular children,
it's
which
like over 2 million people at this point, I believe.
All right. So about 2 million people. Do we know how many kids in particular? And also the kids have been sold into sex slavery, is my understanding as well.
Oh, yeah.
Do we know how many? So roughly 2 million civilians deported, and about how many children do we know?
It's between 200 and 600 children, from what I remember.
Yeah, 100,000 or?
Yes.
200,000 and 600,000 children.
Yes. All right. Yeah, that's... We've been covering this war since before it's... Yeah, please.
Oh, yeah. This is on a level of, maybe not genocide, but it's the kind of ethnic cleansing that's on level with the Holocaust. I mean, they are explicitly and deliberately trying to destroy Ukrainians as a people.
Yeah, that's, I think, and we discussed that Peter 𝐒𝐤𝐚𝐬 had basically said at one point that, that's where it's headed. It's the direction of, he's reproducing the Holocaust with Ukraine. And I don't think that is hyperbole. I don't think that that's a and I'm careful about that. I don't use the words genocide, Holocaust, or anything like that. I don't use them casually here, and I think, unfortunately, that's it. We've been covering this since we started covering this before the invasion. We were sitting there trying to figure out, are they going to invade? And I was immensely proud of, we started streaming the invasion live. You may remember we had you on, Commander. We started streaming it. We follow these things on the Discord. We're proud of the fact that many times we beat mainstream media to air and we beat them to air with this. And the way we did it was we follow social media, and we knew that an invasion was possibly imminent. And then we saw on Facebook somebody had posted a 8-mile long column going from Crimea towards Ukraine. We said, "Oh, that's it. It's the invasion." We were sitting around talking. We're like, "Do we want to go with it now? Or like, is there a way to verify this?" We timestamped it. We got the geolocation data. It was in Ukraine. It looked authentic. We're like, I think this is real, but is there any way? And then one of our guys was just like, does Google traffic work in Ukraine? I don't know. We check. There is an 8-mile long slowdown in Crimea right at that spot. We're like, that's it. We're going live. The invasion's starting. So we were live with the invasion before it started, or as like an hour before it hit. So I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of our coverage. Every couple of months, they find a way to make it more difficult to cover because of just what they're doing. And you take a look at it, and it's just so terrifying and atrocious. And we've had some very difficult shows. Every time I think Russia has gone as far as it can go, they find a way. Yeah.
So I'm going to toss out an interesting little cookie here. And it just popped into my head as we were talking.
Let me interrupt. I don't want you to lose it. We're going to be wrapping this up soon. Anyone who wants to do any final super chats, they're going to the Vatra volunteer organization that supports Starsky's brigade. Do it in time, and we'll wrap up. But please, so let's hear the cookie.
Okay. Why deport the people? Why separate the kids from their families? Well, we know all the reasons, but I think in part there may be an element of collective guilt. I think if you're trying to ensure there's no popular uprising against you, to overthrow the existing regime, and I don't just mean Putin, I mean the whole system of oligarchy and such. If you do something this heinous and your people are part of it they become, at least ethically speaking, as guilty as you are for countenancing it and not standing up and stopping it. And those people are thereby much less likely to stand up and say, let's put an end to this nonsense, because if they win, it exonerates them of their guilt to some extent. So I just wonder if that may have been some of the twisted rationale going on in certain minds behind the Kremlin walls.
So involve even really sort of the average Russian who either knows about this or sees these Ukrainians coming in and does nothing. And then by the time there may be consequences, they have a vested interest in defending the oligarchy and defending Russia against having done this, because they implicitly, what is it? Silence implies consent, even if they did nothing. If they knew.
Every family that voluntarily adopts a Ukrainian child, you're now guilty of child trafficking, effectively.
Any thoughts, Operator Starsky?
Yeah, sounds reasonable. In my opinion, they can be used because, again, Russians are known for, at least they were known for building long, let's say, long-term perspective plans. Okay, plans for the long-term perspective, and those kids can be used later as destabilizing factor in Ukraine, for example, because they will be brainwashed in Russia. Then they will be sent back to Ukraine, and when they arrive, they will say, "We are Ukrainians, we are locals, and this is our home. But we want to see like pro-Russian government in Ukraine because we were treated so well in Russia," and yada yada. This can be one of the factors. Why I'm talking about it is because for 8 years in Donbass, a whole generation got born, went to school, kids that never heard the Ukrainian language, and they were brainwashed already for like 2 years in the elementary school, where they were told about heroes of Novorossiya, Strelkov Girkin, and that Arseny Pavlov, nicknamed Motorola, and all those terrorists. They are heroes to them. And it was a very important question to us Ukrainians, like how shall we reintegrate those kids into Ukrainian society, knowing that they were brainwashed since their birth, basically. They never heard Ukrainian language. That's why Ukrainian government launched this program for the kids on the occupied territories, that they can go to the controlled territory of Ukraine and receive education for free. They don't need to pass any exams and stuff like that. They just arrive to Ukraine, and they have all kinds of benefits. They can receive the education for free, which I think it was both wise and not really wise, because we don't know what kind of ideas were put into those heads. But of course we must develop some kind of way, some kind of efficient way to bring those kids back into Ukrainian society, because it's something that we never faced before.
All right, we do have one more super chat. I'll get to that in a minute. Again, join us on the Discord, and you can keep up with the latest that we're doing in shows. We've got next week, we're going to be doing a breakdown. We did our breakdown of Peter 𝐍𝐤𝐻𝐻's discussion of Ukraine and Russia, I think went very well. We've had a lot of people who really enjoyed that. Peter 𝐍𝐤𝐻𝐻 has made the claim that he believes China is already over. China has ended. It's just the the government is still in place, so it looks like it's intact, but it's going to crumble and it will not survive the end of the decade. We are going to go over that claim, how he reaches that claim and why, and what our views are on that. That will be on Tuesday on In Time. So please join us for that. Like and sub there if you'd like to see that kind of content. We'll also have Commander McMillan on Downtime on next Thursday, and we will be bringing Operator Starsky back for his usual Friday interrogation session at 1 p.m. Eastern a week from today. Commander McMillan, any final thoughts before we do the final super chat and then head out?
Well, I'll save that one for when we talk about the China thing. I do have one question for Starsky. What is the Ukrainian opinion on �NESTOR Makhno?
Most people absolutely crazy about �NESTOR Makhno.
They like him. Okay.
Yeah. At the same time, people who know a bit of history, they know that �NESTOR Makhno was fighting for both sides a lot. But generally, people like �NESTOR Makhno because people in Ukraine like anarchy. Basically, anarchy is the kind of...
What has central government ever done for us?
Yeah, basically, anarchy is the kind of government that actually existed only once in the history, and it was in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So people in Ukraine generally like anarchy and �ΝESTOR Makhno because it represents a lot of our internal type of mentality, I would say, because we have we don't like authorities, we don't like cops. Even though I was a policeman, but that I'm just explaining, okay? We have a President Zelensky. He's our we consider him being our hero and stuff. As soon as the war ends,
nobody's.
Oh my God! Oh my! I'm not envying him because I saw how it works in Ukraine. So
very similar to American thinking.
Yeah.
So so speaking of illicit relations with zoo animals, Dick Dawson is in the live chat. Thank you for joining us, Dick. He is going to have you're going to be joining him. And I don't know, the time has been changing, but Operator Starsky, if you want to see more of Operator Starsky, you can see him on the Shills. I'll be getting a link to that show in just a minute, and we will drop it in as soon as I get that. And he will also be having on someone from Iran. I think that's an interesting topic, one we have not covered as much as I'd like to, and it looks like they will be interviewing someone on the Shills from that. So hopefully people can go check that out. We're very appreciative of the support that he's still in the live chat. Yes, we have now confirmed that Mr. Dawson is still in the live chat. Check your DMs if you would, please, before we get out of here. If we're still on speaking terms, we'll see. All right, and Operator Starsky, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Just 3 thoughts. Putin is a dead man. It is definitely. Ukraine is going to win this war. There's absolutely zero doubt about it. And third one, people care about your teeth. It's important. Because you will be sorry.
I can confirm.
All right. So what we have now is I'm gonna drop. So this is Operator Starsky. You're gonna be on with the Shills, and I'm gonna be dropping that link for people who want to go see you again. For people who've been following you around. So we've just dropped that link, and then we'll have the one for Iran here. This is gonna be a guest from Iran is going to be joining them to talk about, and that's another. Iran is a very important topic as well. So I'm very comfortable. We don't normally we don't In Time is sort of its own unique standalone. We don't usually, work with or connect with other channels, and there's a number of reasons, and that's deliberate. There's a number of reasons for that. But this content that we're talking about here that they're doing, I think, is worthy of putting out there so you guys can go see it. So I think these are important topics that need to be discussed. So very glad to be able to do that. So I thank you all for joining us, and we will be seeing you all. Ostensibly barring any breaking news, which every time I say that, we end up getting breaking news like literally during the credits. We've had that happen more times than I could count. We do also have, and I almost forgot it, $20 from R&R, Stay Strong, Brave Cossack Warriors. That will be going to the Vatra Volunteer Organization. So thank you again for that. Thank you, Commander. It is always a genuine delight to have you on. Operator Starsky, same. It's I always love chatting with you. I love also getting to chat with you in the green rooms. I always love it when you show up early and we can just shoot the shit for a little bit. But it's also a genuine pleasure to be able to inform people, but also hopefully help a little bit when those donations can come through. So thank you for that opportunity, because I think it's an opportunity and I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, all, and we will see you on Tuesday when Commander McMillan, myself, and 𝐒𝐨𝐮𝐭𝐭𝐞𝐫 will be doing a breakdown, a review of Peter 𝐍𝐤𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻's video on why China will not survive the decade. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great weekend.